This is the second lecture on carbohydrates. In the first one, we have discussed about the general properties and function of carbohydrates, their nomenclature, classification, and then we looked at the structure and stereochemistry of carbohydrates, where we have discussed the common stereochemistry, absolute configuration, relative configuration, anomers, epimers, and then we have also discussed about the open chain and cyclic structure of carbohydrates. Specifically, we talked about monosaccharides, and we have also dealt with conversion of different projection formulas. What were those? Fisher projection formula and Howard projection formula, and how you can arrive to Howard projection formula from the Fisher projection formula. So these things have been covered in the first lecture. So what we will do today? Today we will talk about the reactions of monosaccharides, and we will be mostly taking glucose and fructose as the examples, as the representative molecules of the monosaccharides, aldose and ketose. So what are the reactions that we are going to look at? We are mainly focused on oxidation, reduction, oxazone formation, which is a kind of a derivatization of the aldose or ketose. Then we will look at how to ascend the sugar series, that is how to elongate the chain and how to convert a lower number of carbon atoms containing aldose to a higher number of carbon atom containing aldose. Then we will be looking at the chain contraction of sugar series. That means we will go from a higher aldose to its homologous lower aldose, right? We'll be also looking at aldose to ketose conversion and ketose to aldose conversion. And next we will talk about the structure determination of glucose and fructose. Once you know about the common reactions of the monosaccharides, it will be easier to understand the structure determination process that are involved in case of monosaccharides, and particularly we'll be talking about glucose and fructose. Alright, so let's begin the lecture. So what are the common reactions of monosaccharides? Oxidation is one, but the final product that you get out of oxidation of monosaccharides will depend on the types of oxidizing reagents you are using. In case of reduction, also the same thing applies, that the final product will depend on the types of reducing agents you are using, that is the strength of the reducing agent or the strength of the oxidizing agent in case of oxidation. Okay. Esterification is possible with the monosaccharides because they have hydroxyl groups, and formation of the phosphate esters are very common in case of monosaccharides. You have already learned about ATP and how it can transfer phosphate to some alcohol containing compound, primary metabolite, or in this case monosaccharide, right? The next reaction that could be possible with monosaccharides is oxazone formation. The reagent that is used in case of this reaction is phenylhydrazine in acidic condition. Dehydration is also possible because it has a lot of hydroxyl groups, and the reagents that are used in case of dehydration are concentrated acid like H2SO4. Monosaccharides can also undergo glycoside formation. Through this reaction, the disaccharides or oligosaccharides and polysaccharides are formed. We'll discuss about the oxidation, reduction and oxazone formation in detail in this class, and we will talk about glycoside formation when we talk about the disaccharides and polysaccharides. Okay. In addition to these reactions, monosaccharides can also undergo epimerization, tautomerization, indiol rearrangement, derivatization with amino acids, etc. Tautomerization is not exactly a kind of reaction, it's but indiol rearrangement is, and you can look it up in the books I have suggested. It will not be discussed in this lecture. Okay. And aldose and ketose, they behave differently in some of these reactions, the reactions that we mentioned. Why? Because it originates from the difference in their functional group. Aldoses have aldehyde as a functional group and ketoses have ketone as the functional group. So due to this structural difference, they also show some difference in their reactions. One example is, if you use a mild oxidizing agent, you cannot oxidize a ketose, for example fructose, but you will be able to oxidize an aldehyde containing carbohydrate like glucose. Okay, we will discuss this in detail in the coming slide. So we will focus on glucose and in some cases fructose to demonstrate the reactions of monosaccharides. Okay. So let's first look at the oxidation of aldose. We will be talking about glucose as an example. So in general, if you use mild oxidizing reagents, you will only be able to convert the aldehyde group to carboxyl group. So CHO to COOH. No other groups will be converted, or no other groups will be changed to will be oxidized. Okay, only CHO will be oxidized to COOH. So what are the common mild oxidizing reagents that you can use? The most common is bromine water. Then you can use also alkaline solution of iodine or mercuric oxide in calcium salt. Enzymatically, glucose oxidase is an enzyme which can oxidize the CHO group specifically to COOH group. So what is the reaction? Let's look at this. So this is an aldose in the left hand side. Okay, we have not shown the placement of the H and OH groups in the four carbon atoms, four middle carbon atoms. So it's a general aldohexose, and we are oxidizing it with bromine water, which is a mild oxidizing agent. So it is only converting the CHO group to COH group, and this product is called aldonic acid. So when only the CHO group of an aldose is converted to COH group, this product, this acid or alcoholic acid, is called aldonic acid. So if it is glucose, the aldose is glucose, the oxidized product will be gluconic acid. Okay, just as I mentioned that D-glucose will be converted to gluconic acid upon oxidation with bromine water. Now, being a mild reagent, bromine water cannot oxidize fructose, which is a ketose, because ketone is less uh, susceptible to oxidation with mild oxidizing agent, whereas aldehydes can. So reaction of glucose with bromine water turns the yellow solution, because bromine water is yellow or slightly brownish yellow. You have seen this in the lab. So if this bromine water is added to a solution of glucose, the yellow solution will immediately turn colorless due to the formation of Beer minus. So it could be used to differentiate between glucose and fructose, or more precisely to differentiate between a aldose, differentiate between a ketose and an aldose, right? So this you should keep in mind. This is a practical application of the reaction you are studying. Okay. So now if we use a strong oxidizing reagent, for example nitric acid, what will happen? The CHO will be oxidized to COH group. In addition to that, the CH2OH group, that is the bottommost carbon or the bottommost group, will also be oxidized to COH group. Okay. So now both CHO and CH2OH in case of an aldose will be converted to carboxyl groups. So this is an aldose, an aldohexose, so to speak, will be oxidized by nitric acid to a compound which will have carboxyl groups at the at both the terminal, right? So this product is called aldaric acid or saccharic acid. This is the yield that you will get out of this reaction. It varies with different aldoses. Okay, so uh, when we looked at the mild oxidizing agent, uh, we saw that we are getting aldonic acid, and in case of this strong oxidizing agent, both the CH and CH2OH groups are oxidized to carboxyl groups, and we are getting aldaric acid or saccharic acid. So if you take D-glucose and oxidize it with HNO3, you will get glucuric acid, or sometimes it is also called saccharic acid. Okay, but glucuric acid is more common. Now reaction with HNO3 converts fructose, which is a ketose, to a mixture of trihydroxyglutaric acid, tartaric acid and glycolic, sorry, this should be glycolic acid. Due to presence of a ketonic group, the carbon chain is getting ruptured here. Okay, so because the ketone group is present in between in the straight chain, so when oxidation with this strong oxidizing agent is taking place, this bond is this whole chain is getting ruptured, and you will get a mixture of different acids with different extent, but it will be all of them are having less number of carbon as compared to the parent ketose, right? Now, in case of oxidation of aldose, there is another possibility that the CHO group is not oxidized, although it is the more susceptible one, but the CH2OH group is oxidized to the COOH. That is, the terminal primary alcoholic group is oxidized to COOH or carboxyl group. How could you achieve that? So, in that case, you have to protect the aldehyde group by some compound. Usually it is protected by acetone, because CHO is more reactive towards oxidizing agent as compared to the alcoholic group. Okay, so the first step would be protection of the aldehyde group, and then the second step will be oxidation of the CH2OH group. Usually it is done with oxygen in presence of platinum carbon as catalyst. So what will happen if this is the aldose or aldohexose? If you perform these two steps, eventually you will get the oxidized product where the CHO is remaining as it is. Only the primary alcoholic group, that is the CH2OH group, is oxidized to COOH. This is called uronic acid. So what will be the reaction steps? So you take an aldose, which is shown here in pyranose form, is shown in the ring form. Okay, the planar ring form or planar Fischer ring form that we had discussed in the last class. So what you are doing, you are adding some acetone in HCl, so that the this 1,2,5,6 diisopropyl aldofuranose ring compound is formed. Why furanose? That means furanose means it is a 5-membered ring with oxygen. If you look at this structure, it is a 5-membered ring, while the previous one was the pyranose ring, that is the 6-membered ring. Now, because of this reaction to take place, this ring size changes to a furanose ring, so that this diisopropyl derivative can form. Usually, the acetone group will react with the diol only if the orientation of the hydroxyl groups is cis on the adjacent carbon. So these two, the C1, C2 will react with 1 mole of or 1 equivalent of acetone, and this C5, C6 will react with another equivalent of acetone. In case of C3 and C4, because of this ring formation, it is indicated that the OH groups at C3 and C4 are trans to each other. You can see from the second structure. So this diisopropyl derivative can be converted to isopropyl derivative by using acetic acid. So only this C1 and C2 are remained protected with 1 equivalent of this acetone, right? And in the last step, you perform the oxidation with in presence of platinum carbon as catalyst, and you will get this CH2OH oxidized, and eventually if you perform hydrolysis, this isopropyl derivative will also be hydrolyzed to finally give you this CHO group. So you get an uronic acid. So if you take glucose and perform this reaction, you will get glucuronic acid or glucuronic acid. Okay, where the CHO group is intact, but the CH2OH group is oxidized to carboxyl group. Now let's come to the reduction of monosaccharides. So reduction is possible with reagents like sodium borohydride, sodium amalgam, and catalytic hydrogenation is possible as well. What we'll get in case of an aldose, you will have this CHO converted to CH2OH, that is a primary alcoholic group. So if you take an aldose or aldohexose, in this case, you have your CHO group reduced to CH2OH, all other groups are remaining intact. So if you take D-glucose and use, let's say, sodium borohydride, in this case, you are getting a compound called sorbitol, where the CHO group is now reduced to CH2OH. Okay. So this is the only possible product that you can get out of this reduction in case of this aldose. In case of ketose, the carbonyl group or the keto group will be converted to CHOH group, that is a secondary alcohol. So in case of aldose, it was a primary alcoholic group, and in case of ketose, the reduction gives you a secondary alcoholic group at the center, which was initially a carbonyl group. But in case of ketose, you don't get one product, you get a pair of diastereoisomers. Why? So let's look at the example of D-fructose. So if you treat D-fructose with sodium borohydride, let's say, you get a mixture of isomers which are known as sorbitol and mannitol. Why are you getting this diastereomers? Because let's look at the carbonyl group. So the reducing agent NaBH4 will give you H minus, which will be reacting to this carbonyl group or attacking to this carbonyl group. So since this carbonyl group or this carbon of this keto group is actually sp2 hybridized, it can attack from both the side. It's a planar moiety, so it can attack either from the top or from the bottom. So if it attacks from one side, you will get one isomer, and if it attacks from the other side, you will get the other isomer. The orientation of the H and OH will be different. So look at the sorbitol and mannitol. All the carbon atoms and the orientation of OH and H groups are same in case of these two diastereomers, except for the C2 carbon atom. In C2, in case of sorbitol, the OH is placed at the right hand side, and in case of mannitol, the OH is at the left hand side. But in case of glucose, we found only one isomer. Why? Because we were getting a primary alcoholic group from CHO. This is not an asymmetric center, so doesn't matter from which side. This is also a planar group. CHO is also a planar group, but it doesn't matter from which side the H minus is approaching. You are getting an asymmetric center. So you get only one isomer. But in case of D-fructose or any ketose for that matter, you will get a mixture of diastereomers. And why diastereomers? Because every other asymmetric center are having the same symmetry except for only one center. That's why they are not enantiomer. Okay, they are not mirror images to each other, which is why they are overall the molecules are diastereomer. Reduction is also possible with red phosphorus and hydroiodic acid. If you heat the aldose or ketose at higher temperature with this in presence of these compounds or these reducing agents, you eventually get a alkane. Okay. In case of D-glucose, initially you will get 2 iodohexane, which if undergoes prolonged heating will give you N-iodohexane or N-hexane. Actually, this should be N-hexane. The major product you will get will be N-hexane or normal hexane. Okay. Okay. Now let's sum up what we have learned so far. Let's look at the reactions of glucose. So what were the possibilities of reactions? In case of oxidation, we saw that glucose can be converted to gluconic acid when oxidation of the terminal CHO group takes place, and this is possible if oxidation is done with mild oxidizing reagent. If you perform the oxidation with strong oxidizing reagent like HNO3, you will find that oxidation of both the CHO and terminal CH2OH group is taking place and you are getting glucuric acid or saccharic acid. Okay. If you protect the CHO group and oxidize the terminal CH2OH group, you are getting glucuronic acid. In case of reduction of glucose, if the reduction is taking place only at the terminal CHO, you were getting sorbitol. Now these compounds you should remember because these come sometimes in the question that how will you get glucuric acid or gluconic acid or glucuronic acid. Okay, you should not be confusing them. You should know which one, in case of which group is getting oxidized. Another type of oxidation is also possible with the aldose and ketose, which is usually done by periodic acid that leads to complete breakage of the carbon chain, and you will determine the ring size or you will determine the chain size, that is the number of carbon atoms present in some aldose or ketose by that particular type of reaction. We will be discussing that later, not in this class. So you can now think of if I want you to summarize the reactions of or particularly oxidation reduction reaction of D-fructose, what you will get from D-fructose. In case of mild oxidizing agent, there is no reaction, so you won't get anything. If you treat fructose or any ketose with the strong oxidizing agent, you were getting some mixture of acids which were having less number of carbon atoms as compared to the ketose, right? And this oxidation of terminal CH2OH is possible in case of fructose as well. And reduction of D-fructose will give you a mixture of diastereomers. Fructose gives sorbitol and mannitol, so other ketose can give you other diastereomers. Okay. The next reaction is osazone formation by monosaccharides. Both aldose and ketose can undergo this reaction, and this is a type of derivatization reaction. The product that is formed is called osazone. What is the reagent of this reaction? It is phenylhydrazine, okay, or PHNH2. Now in case of an aldose, let's look at this example of aldose first. So this is an aldose. Note that I have shown only the first two carbon atoms, CHO and CHOH, and I have not specified the stereochemistry of CHOH. So it could be any aldose, okay. So when this aldose is treated with excess amount of phenylhydrazine in acidic medium, it forms this compound which is called osazone. So all the remaining carbon atoms and the groups attached to it will remain unaffected. Only the first two reactions are participating in the reaction. First two atoms are participating in the reaction, and the product, this particular product is formed. As byproducts, aniline and ammonia are formed. In case of ketose also, I have shown you CH2OH and the bottom part has not been shown. So this will also react with phenylhydrazine or excess amount of phenylhydrazine. Similarly, as similar with the aldose, and it will give this osazone, which is similar to the osazone you were getting in case of the aldose. Okay, and as byproducts you are getting aniline and ammonia. Now you should note here that although this aldose and the ketose both are giving similar kind of osazone, that does not mean that any aldose and any ketose will give you same osazone. It's important to note that only the first two carbon atoms have been shown here, and only the first two carbon atoms are participating in the reaction, which is why those aldose or those ketos, or both aldose and ketos, which differ only in the stereochemistry or the structure of the first two carbon atoms, will be giving same OSA zone. Okay, you will understand it better when you look at the reaction steps. So let's look at the example of aldose. So this is an aldose. Let's say, for example, this is glucose. Okay. So first it will react with one equivalent of phenylhydrazine, and it will form a phenylhydrazone derivative. So if it is a glucose, then it will form glucose phenylhydrazone. And this reaction is nothing but condensation reaction, where one water molecule is released. It has not been shown here, but it is understood, right? One water molecule is getting released because the reaction is happening between CHO and CHNH NH2. Double bond is being formed between carbon and nitrogen now. Okay, this is the CHOH group. Now, in normal circumstances, you would expect that, okay, a carbonyl compound reacts with hydrazine and forms hydrazone compound. So the reaction should stop here, but this does not happen in case of monosaccharides. Why? Because a rearrangement is possible in this compound, and so this compound can undergo the rearrangement. There is a particular name of this rearrangement. Can anyone tell me that? Okay, so after this rearrangement, you will get this compound, right? So it's only drawn in a different way. You get this after this rearrangement. So it is drawn in a six-membered ring kind of fashion, where you can see there is a hydrogen bonding interaction between the NHPH and hydrogen of the OH group attached to the second carbon. So from this compound, what will happen? This NH, the lone pair of this NHPH, can actually take up this H or H plus from the COH group. Okay, and CO bond will form, and this double bond will go there. So what is happening? Aniline is getting released from this compound, and you are getting this compound. Okay, CH double bond NH CO. So a ketonic group has been formed. Okay, and the phenylhydrazine that reacted with the aldose or glucose in the first step is now getting out of the compound as aniline. So one equivalent of aniline is getting released in the second step, so to speak, if you do not consider this rearrangement as a particular step. Okay, now this molecule can react further with another molecule of PHNH2 or phenylhydrazine, and again it can undergo condensation, because now this keto group is reacting with this hydrazine or phenylhydrazine, and this compound is formed. Now this CH double bond NH is also susceptible towards reaction with phenylhydrazine, and in this case, instead of water, NH3 will be released, and you will get the osazole compound. So if we consider this as glucose, if we consider the aldose, starting aldose as glucose, this will be your glucoosazone. Okay. Now in case of ketone also similar thing will happen. Let's consider that this is fructose. This ketose is a fructose. It will react with one equivalent of phenylhydrazine and will form fructose phenylhydrazine. Okay. So the ketone group is reacting with the PHNH NH2, and you should note that always this terminal NH2 group will react with the ketonic group, or in case of aldose it will react with the aldehyde group, because the lone pair of the other NH group will be involved in delocalization with the adjacent phenyl ring. Okay, which is why you get NNHPH or C double bond NNHPH as the product. Again the rearrangement is possible, and you will get this compound. Again it will undergo this reaction to release aniline, just like the case in the case of aldose, and now you will get this uh, aldehydic compound. So see, from the ketonic compound you are getting a compound which is now having an aldehyde group, and in case of aldose, what you found from the aldehydic compound, you were getting ketonic group in the after the second step. Okay. So all right, I did show you this anyway. So the after the first step of reaction and the rearrangement, you get this, from which this aniline is getting released and you are getting this aldehydic compound, and the second carbon is now linked to NH with a double bond. So now this can react with another equivalent of phenylhydrazine, just like the case of aldose, and now it will form this hydrazone compound at the first carbon, or C1. So now this C2 is in form of C double bond NH. This can also react with another equivalent of PHNH and H2, and it will give you this osazone. So if we consider this starting ketose as fructose, this will be your fructoosazone and NH3 will form. Okay. So if you look at the structure of glucoosazone and fructoosazone, you will see they have similar structure. Okay. So you should note here that only first two carbon atoms are involved in this reaction. Thus, glucose and fructose will form the same osazone, and aldoses that are C2 epimers will form the same osazone. So what are C2 epimers? We have discussed in the last class. So one example was what? Glucose and mannose. So they will form the same osazone. Any other pair of aldose, it could be aldotetrose, aldopentose. So if they were C2 epimers, they will also give you the same osazone. Okay. And another important thing to note here is 3 equivalents of phenylhydrazine is getting used in the osazone formation, because the first equivalent after reaction and the rearrangement, it is getting out as aniline, and then the compound formed after that is reacting with another 2 equivalent of phenylhydrazine. So you should note that not 2 equivalent but 3 equivalents of phenylhydrazine is being used in this reaction. Now you may think that why only the first two carbon atoms are participating in this reaction? It did not stop at the first carbon atom, but then why it did stop at the second carbon atom? The reason is that the osazone formed in the reaction, that is the final product we saw in case of both aldose and ketose, is stabilized by chelation or intramolecular hydrogen bonding interaction. The following models 1, 2 and 3 have been proposed for the chelate. Okay. Therefore, since this product or the final product was having this kind of stabilizing interaction, so further reactions involving the next carbon atoms do not take place. Okay, clear? All right. Okay, now let's look at how we can synthesize higher aldose from a lower aldose. Like how we can synthesize aldopentose from aldotetrose or aldohexose from aldopentose. We have already seen the sugars, or particularly the aldoses in ascending order of carbon atoms in the previous class. We have seen that. So you can actually synthesize from glyceraldehyde. You can synthesize triose or erythrose. That is, you are adding one carbon to that chain. Okay. Then again from erythrose and triose you can go to the aldopentoses, right? Ribose, arabinose, xylose, lysose. So this is done usually by the Kiliani synthesis, or more commonly known as Kiliani-Fischer synthesis. So what happens? So this is the reaction scheme. So one aldopentose has been taken. So the stereochemistry has not been denoted here. It's just a common aldopentose, just to show you how the reaction happens. Okay. So this aldopentose is reacted with aqueous HCl. So usually NaCN in acidic medium is taken, which ultimately gives you HCN, and this HCN is added to this CHO group. So it's a addition reaction with this CHO group, which will give you a cyanohydrine derivative like this. Okay. And in the next step, this cyanohydrine derivative is hydrolyzed to aldonic acid. Okay. This CN is now converted to CO2H or carboxyl group. All the other remaining carbon atoms have remained intact. Now if you heat it, this aldonic acid, you will get a gamma lactone of that particular aldonic acid. Why this is gamma? Because this is a cyclic ester, which is why it is called lactone. And why gamma? Because this CO group is linked to the CHOH, which is the alpha carbon, then the next CHOH will be the beta carbon, and the next CHOH is actually involved in forming the ester linkage or the cyclic ester linkage, which is why this is called a gamma lactone. And if you reduce this gamma lactone by sodium amalgam or any other reducing agent, you will get the aldohexose. That means this gamma lactone is now reduced to the aldose. So this is what is happening, and you can see that from an aldopentose we are getting aldohexose. That means one carbon has been added. So the reagents in Kiliani synthesis or Kiliani-Fischer synthesis, this spelling is wrong, it will be 1L. Okay, so the reagents in step 1 is HCN or NaCN water. In step 2, barium hydroxide, H2SO4, and heat is used. You can consider this these second and third step actually together, where ultimately you get a gamma lactone of aldonic acid from the cyanohydrin derivative, and in the last step you reduce this gamma lactone and the reagent uses sodium amalgam. Some other reducing reagent can also be used. In an improved method over this Kiliani-Fischer synthesis, what has been done? Cyanohydrin, the cyanohydrin derivative you get after the first step is directly reduced to aldose with hydrogen, palladium, barium sulfate and water. So this will give you, from the cyanohydrin derivative you get the CN is reduced to CHO and you get the aldose just in 2 steps. So this you can consider as a 3-step or as a 4-step process, but in the improved method it can be done in 2 steps. Okay, so if you look at this cyanohydrin derivative, when this HCN addition is taking place at the CHO or the aldehyde carbon, what is the possibility? There is possibility of 2 isomers formation, because this if this is a part of the CHO group is part of an aldose and you are treating it with HCN, either in one isomer the OH group will be at the right hand side or the OH group could be at the left hand side. So this will give you 2 isomers, because the remaining part will be same in both the isomers. So you will get a pair of diastereomers. So let's look at the general example to understand it better. So we are looking at a general example of HCN addition. So this is a common small aldehyde. What is this? Acetaldehyde, CH3CHO. So if you add HCN to it, HCN can attack from the front face. Why? Because this is a planar molecule. CH3CHO is a planar molecule. This carbon is a sp2 hybridized carbon. So this Cn minus can attack from the front face or it can attack from the back face, or if you consider that it is parallel to the floor, you can think of the Cn minus coming from the top, that is top of the plane, or from the bottom of the plane. So you can get 2 isomers which will look like this. So in case of aldoses also you will get this kind of cyanohydrin derivatives which will be isomer. So this C2, where this the CHO group was initially, is now CHOH in case of the cyanohydrin derivative, will be the source of this 2 epimers formation. Why? Since Cn minus can attack from both the faces, that is the top face and bottom face, or you can say front face or back face, the 2 cyanohydrins are possible. Therefore, in case of aldoses, 2 diastereomeric gamma lactones are formed, okay, because 2 cyanohydrin derivatives have been formed which will be converted to 2 different isomers of aldonic acid and eventually to a pair of gamma lactones which will be diastereomeric to each other. Why diastereomers? We have already discussed this before in this class only, that all the other remaining carbon atoms have the similar stereochemistry, only at one carbon it is differing. So the compounds or the pair of compounds will not be mirror image to each other, it will be diastereomeric. Okay, so two diastereomeric gamma lactones are formed, resulting in the production of two epimers of the corresponding higher aldose. So this aldohexose that you will get from the aldopentose will actually be a pair of aldohexoses, where the C2 carbon will have different positioning of the hydroxyl and hydroxyl group and hydrogen. So you will get C2 epimers. But practically what happens, formation of one cyanohydrin derivative is favored over the other because the faces are diastereotopic. The faces of this CHO group are diastereotopic. So Cn minus can attack from one side better as compared to the other side due to steric reason, right? Thus, in the given example, mainly one aldohexose is produced with very little of its epimer. Okay. Now let's see how we can descend the sugar series. That means from an aldose we are preparing next lower aldose. So this can be done by various methods. One of which is Wolff's method. So let's take an aldohexose to understand it. This aldohexose will be reacted with hydroxylamine NH2OH. So this NH2OH will react with the aldehyde group of the aldohexose and will form this aldose oxime derivative. Okay, CH double bond NOH is formed instead of CHO. When this is reacted with acetic anhydride, you will get a nitrile group instead of this oxime group, and all the other hydroxyl groups of the secondary or primary alcoholic groups will be now converted to their acetylated form, right? When this is hydrolyzed in alkaline medium, you will get the aldose with one carbon less. That means this C2 carbon is now being converted to the CHO group. So the reagents that have been used in this method is, in the first step we are using NH2OH in mildly acidic medium. In second step acetic anhydride has been used, and in the third step you are going for alkaline hydrolysis. There is another method called Ruff's method, which is actually more common. You will be studying this in more detail in most of the books. So in this method, let's again take an example of aldohexose. So what is happening? It is first reacted with bromine water. That means we are oxidizing the aldehyde group, only the aldehyde group, right? So you get an aldonic acid. We have already studied this. This aldonic acid will then be reacted with calcium salt. So it will give you a calcium salt of this aldonic acid or aldonet, and this aldonet will react with this, or the aldonic acid will react with Fe3 plus H2O2 to give you the next lower aldose, that is in this case aldopentose, and one carbon dioxide molecule will be released, or one equivalent of CO2 will be released, to be precise. So the reagents used in this method is bromine water, calcium salt, usually calcium carbonate is used, and in the step 2b we are using Fe3 plus H2O2. Fe2 plus H2O2 is called Fenton's reagent, but in the Ruff's method, uh, ferric sulfate and H2O2 has been used. That means Fe3 plus has been used. So let's look at the mechanism of Ruff's degradation method, or it is also called Ruff-Fenton degradation method. So first step is homolytic cleavage of H2O2 hydrogen peroxide, which will give you hydroxyl radical. Then the next step is decarboxylation of aldonic acid salt. So the calcium carbonate or the calcium salt we are using with the aldonic acid, we are giving you the aldonet, right? This is, so this R is indicating the remaining part of the carbohydrate. the other CHOH, CH2OH groups. Okay, so if it is an aldopentose, aldonic acid of aldopentose, then it will be, this R will be CHOH, CHOH, CH2OH. Okay, so this aldonate will react with hydroxyl radical, which will give you now this uh, this carboxyl group, but this carboxyl is now not a carboxylate anion but a carboxyl radical, right? Because this carboxyl group, the carboxylate anion in the first structure has donated one electron to this hydroxyl radical. So the hydroxyl radical has now become OH minus, that is hydroxyl anion, and this carboxylate group in the aldonate has now become carboxyl radical. So here again homolytic cleavage and homolytic cleavage is possible, which is why this carbon dioxide molecule will be formed in gaseous form, so it will be released. So this carbon-carbon bond is undergoing homolytic cleavage and ultimately resulting in a carbon dioxide molecule formation and formation of this carbon centered radical now, right? So this formation of carbon dioxide is the driving force of this reaction, or you know, right, decarboxylation and formation of some gaseous molecule drives any reaction towards the right hand side. Okay, so again there will be another hydroxyl radical remaining, because two hydroxyl radicals were formed from the H2O2 molecule. So this hydroxyl radical can undergo reaction with this carbon centered radical, and which will ultimately give you this aldehyde, right? So because this R group is part of the aldopentose, so we are considering an aldopentose here. So this final compound will now be an aldotetrose, and water molecule will form. So you should note here that loss of the first asymmetric carbon center happens in this chain contraction process. Why? Because this carboxyl group of this aldonate is now going out as CO2, right? So this CHOH, that is the C2 carbon atom, is actually getting converted to your aldehyde group. That means this was the first asymmetric carbon if you consider it from the top. So this is losing its asymmetry because it is now being converted to an aldehyde group, or the overall aldopentose or the next lower aldose is formed. So aldoses that are C2 epimers will form the same lower aldose, right? That means if you take glucose and perform this reaction, you will get arabinose, and if you take mannose also, you will get arabinose, right? Because that is the aldopentose from which glucose and mannose were synthesized in case of chain elongation process. So in case of chain contraction process, from these two C2 epimers, you will get the same aldopentose, right? Okay. Now let's look at the conversion of aldose to ketose. Okay. So this is simple. What you have to do, you take an aldose, you treat that with excess of phenylhydrazine. So what will happen? Osazone formation will take place, and you then have to hydrolyze this osazone with HCl, which will give you this diketonic compound CHO C double bond O. So an aldehyde group and a ketonic group are adjacent to each other. So this compound is called ozone. Okay, and when you reduce this ozone, you will get the ketose. So from aldose you get a ketose. The number of carbon atoms remain intact. Okay, and aldehyde group is reduced more easily than a ketonic group, which is why you get ketose from the ozone, and not this ketonic group is not converted to secondary alcoholic group. The reagents is chosen in that way, and also because the reactivity of CHO is higher towards the reducing agent. So reagents used. First, obviously, you have to use phenylhydrazine, C6H5NH2 or PHNH2. In the second step, you are using hydrochloric acid, and in the third step, which is the reduction step, normally zinc acetic acid can be used. Now let's look at the conversion of ketose to aldose, because the chain elongation process or chain contraction process that we talk about usually are done from aldoses. So if you have a ketose, the common procedure is you convert it to the homologous aldose and then you perform the other reactions. So what happens? You take a ketose. So this is a keto hexose, right? Total 6 carbon atoms are present. You reduce it. You will, so this CO group will be reduced to CHOH, right? Then you oxidize it with HNO3. This is a controlled oxidation where only one CH2OH group will be oxidized to COOH group. Other is remaining intact. So what is this? This is an aldonic acid, right? So if you heat it, you will get a gamma lactone, and then if you reduce this gamma lactone, you will get the aldose, right? So from ketose, you are getting the aldose. So now the thing to remember is that when you are reducing this ketose with hydrogen and nickel, what is happening? The CO is getting converted to CHOH. So there is a possibility of formation of two isomers, like we have discussed in case of Killiani synthesis. It's kind of similar with the cyanide addition, right? So you'll get a pair of because you are now generating an asymmetric carbon atom at the C2 position. So theoretically, two polyhydric alcohols may form on reduction of ketose where you are using hydrogen nickel, and due to formation of a new asymmetric carbon, this two isomers or formation of these two isomers are possible, right? Initially it was CO or a keto group. Now it is converted to CHOH. So OH could be at the right hand side or OH could be at the left hand side. So this is now an asymmetric carbon atom. But in practice, one alcohol predominates again because of the steric reason. It's a diastereotopic phase. Another thing to note is oxidation can take place at either end of the chain, right? So when you get that polyhydric alcohol in the first step, so the oxidation is happening at one CH2OH and the other CH2OH is remaining intact. So any of the terminal can actually undergo this oxidation. So the final product of the process will actually be a mixture of 4 aldoses. So the C2 carbon, which was initially a ketone, will give you a pair of uh, different orientation or a pair of isomers, so to speak, and this CH2OH, any of the CH2OH can be oxidized. So depending upon the orientation of the middle carbons, middle CHOH groups, there are possibility of two different aldonic acid formation, which eventually will give you two different aldoses. So a total of 4 different aldoses are possible, but obviously not in equal amount. There will be mixtures of in different ratio. Okay, so now we have discussed the important reactions of monosaccharides, and now we will look into the structure elucidation of glucose and fructose. So let's look at glucose first. You already have learned in the previous units that structure elucidation or structure determination of any compound can be done chemically or spectroscopically or in a combination of both. So in this case, we will be talking about chemical reactions by which you can determine the structure. But at the first step, usually elemental analysis and molecular weight determination is done on the compound given. So in case of glucose, it shows that it has a molecular formula of C6H12O6. Then if you treat the compound with acetic anhydride, uh, it leads to formation of a pentaacetate compounds. So this indicates the presence of 5 hydroxyl groups, right? Because hydroxyl groups can react with acetic anhydride to give acetylated compounds, right? So you know the molecular formula and you know there are presence of 5 hydroxyl groups. Now if you treat the compound with hydroxylamine, that is NH2OH, you see that it forms an oxime. We have already studied this. So this indicates that there is a presence of carbonyl group, right? We don't know whether this is an aldehyde group or a ketonic group, but it is for sure a carbonyl group. So if you want to identify whether it is a aldehyde group or ketonic group, you can treat the compound with the mild oxidizing agent, let's say bromine water. So this gives you a pentahydroxy acid of formula C6H12O7. So this is actually the formula of gluconic acid, right? So this indicates that the carbonyl group present is an aldehyde group. Okay. There is another reaction you can do, which is reduction of the compound. So it can be done with Selling solution, which is a basic solution of cupric ions, or it can be done with Tollens reagent, which is ammoniacal silver nitrate. So if the compound is an aldehyde, it will reduce the Selling solution to red cuprous oxide, and in case of Tollens reagent, it will reduce it to metallic silver. So I think you have done this in your lab in school level. So you get a gray precipitate aura, or if you are lucky, you get a silver mirror if your compound is an aldose, or if your compound is glucose, to be precise here. Okay, so these are indicative of presence of aldehyde group. Now, one thing is important to note here that in alkaline medium, ketosis also can undergo indiol rearrangement, which causes them to conversion to aldehydic group eventually. So in case of Penning solution or in case of Tollens reagent, you actually get this characteristic color, red color, or the silver mirror even in case of ketose. So if you have fructose and you perform this reaction, there is chance that you will get a positive test. So bromine water, in that regard, bromine water would be a better choice to test whether you have the aldehyde or ketonic group. Okay. Now on complete reduction with concentrated hydroiodic acid and red phosphorus, the aldohexose gives N-hexane or normal hexane as major product. So this indicates that 6 carbon atoms in the aldohexose are in a straight chain. So only if the compound, the carbon atoms are in a straight chain, not in a branch chain, you will get a normal hexane, right? So this indicates that 6 carbon atoms are in a straight chain. So from these above evidences, it can be concluded that glucose is a pentahydroxyhexanal, that is an aldohexose. So it can be represented by this structure. But so far we have only looked at the structure and not the stereochemistry. So note that the absolute configuration of the of glucose is not determined here. Okay, we only know that these are the asymmetric carbon atoms. We know the structure and the connectivity we can guess from these evidences. Okay. Structure elucidation of fructose will be similar to that of glucose. So first you perform elemental analysis and molecular weight determination, which will give you the molecular formula of C6H12O6. So fructose and glucose have the same molecular formula. Then if you treat the compound with acetic anhydride, again you will get a pentacetate just like glucose. So this will also indicate that there is presence of 5 hydroxyl groups. The compound forms an oxime when treated with hydroxylamine. So therefore it contains a carbonyl group, because any carbonyl group will react with NH2OH and will give an oxime. So now you have to identify whether you have aldehyde group or a ketonic group. For that, you can try reacting it with bromine water. So if it is not oxidized by bromine water, it will indicate the absence of aldehyde group. So the carbonyl group must be a ketonic group. In addition to that, what you can do, on oxidation with strongly oxidizing nitric acid, fructose is converted into a mixture of trihydroxyglutaric acid, tartaric acid and glycolic acid. And since a mixture of acids each containing fewer number of carbon atoms than fructose is obtained, because one is having 5 carbon, one is having 4 and the other is having 2 carbons, and fructose is while a 6 carbon atom compound, right. So this indicates that the carbonyl group in fructose must be present in a ketonic form, right. So these reactions will indicate the presence of ketonic group. In addition to that, you can also test it by partial reduction with sodium amalgam. So that will produce a mixture of two epimeric alcohols. We studied it in few slides ago, right? So you get a mixture of sorbitol and mannitol in case of fructose. Why? Because a new asymmetric center is now being generated at C2, where the CO group was. So this confirms the presence of ketonic group and presence of the ketonic group at C2. Okay. Then if you perform complete reduction with concentrated HI and red phosphorus, the ketohexose gives N-hexane as the major product like glucose. So this will also indicate again that the 6 carbon atoms in the this should be actually ketohexose. Okay, so the 6 carbon atoms in the ketohexose are in a straight chain. Okay, so the 6 carbon atoms are in a straight chain in case of fructose as well. There is no branching. Now, if you treat the compound with HCN, it forms an addition product. We have studied this in case of Kiliani synthesis or Kiliani-Fischer synthesis. Okay. So, the addition product upon hydrolysis and subsequent reduction with HI, red phosphorus, gives 2-methyl hexanoic acid. So, this is the molecular formula, the structure of 2-methyl hexanoic acid, right? So what is happening? First, you treat this compound with HCN. It is forming an addition product. So it will be, you can try it actually on yourself. Okay. So the addition product, what will be the addition product? Look at the example of glucose and then perform the similar kind of reaction at fructose. So that addition product, if hydrolyzed, what will happen? Eventually it will give you an acidic compound. There is CN, right? So CN will be hydrolyzed to COH group, and then if you perform reduction with HI red phosphorus, so the alcoholic groups will be reduced to alkyl groups. So you will get 2-methyl hexanoic acid as the final product. So what does this indicate? This also indicates that the ketone group is adjacent to one of the terminal carbon atoms. That means the ketone group is present at C2. So from these evidences, it can be concluded that fructose is a pentahydroxyhexanone. Okay, so a ketohexose, and the structure will be something like this, and it has 3 asymmetric carbon atoms as compared to 4 asymmetric carbon atoms in glucose. Okay. So this is for a quick recap. You can compare what we are doing in case of glucose and fructose for structural elucidation. Both of them will give the same molecular formula. On reaction with glucose red, on reaction with HI red phosphorus, you will get N-hexane, that will indicate presence of 6 carbon atoms in an unbranched chain. Now, if dissolved in water, glucose will dissolve in water, so will fructose, because they are monosaccharides, they have good water solubility, but the solution you get will be a neutral solution. So this indicates absence of carboxyl group in both the cases. Then you know the reaction with acetic anhydride, that will give a pentaacetate in both the cases, so that indicates presence of 5 hydroxyl groups. Reaction with NH2OH or hydroxylamine gives you monooxime compound, so that indicates presence of ketonic group, right? Reaction with HCN gives you cyanohydrin compound. That is also an indication of presence of a carbonyl group, which could be aldehyde or ketone. So the only difference that will be there in the reaction of aldehyde and ketone group towards a specific reagent. Like in case of bromine water, glucose will give gluconic acid indicating presence of aldehyde group, but fructose will not give any reaction in this case. So absence of aldehyde group will be uh, concluded from that. But in presence of nitric acid, so when you oxidize the compound with nitric acid, in case of glucose you get glucuric acid or saccharic acid, which indicates presence of a primary alcoholic group. But in case of fructose you get a mixture of acids, different acids which have lower number of carbon atoms as compared to fructose. That means rupture of the carbon chain is taking place, indicating presence of a ketonic group. And in case of Tollens Tollens reagent and failing solution, glucose ideally reduces it to metallic silver and red cuprous oxide, confirming the presence of aldehyde group. But fructose, as I mentioned, that fructose will also do the same thing because the reaction medium is alkaline in both the cases. But in case of fructose, what you can do, if you react it with sodium amalgam water, it will lead to formation of two epimeric alcohol, sorbitol and mannitol, by generation of a new asymmetric carbon center at C2. So this presents the this indicates the presence of ketone group. Okay. Now, since fructose reacts with HCN and hydrolysis of the cyanohydrin derivative followed by reduction with HI red phosphorus gives you 2-methyl-hexanoic acid, that indicates that the ketone group is adjacent to one of the terminal carbon atoms. Okay. So now the whole thing that we discussed in the last two slides have been revised. Okay. So this is the end of this lecture. The next lecture will be covering disaccharides, oligosaccharides, polysaccharides, and few other important things. Okay, all right.